Hey, good afternoon. I'm back. This is a doubleheader with CDP today, live with CDP. Again, I want to wish everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day, hence the green Eagles hat and my green shirt. So I'm looking forward to today's second podcast of the day, season 3, episode 18. And this is my 128th episode I've done in 2 years. So I've been very lucky to have so many great guests to come on. And today I look forward to my guest, Carla Fitzsimmons. She's a Rogers TV producer, part-time professor at Conestoga College, and also a producer at 570 City News in Kitchener. And I'm looking forward to speaking to her and telling her how much I've enjoyed my time with Rogers TV as a volunteer and learning the cameras from Neil White and stuff like that as well. And just give me 1 second, guys, and I'm going to bring on Carla, and I'm looking forward to speaking with her. Happy St. Patrick's Day. How you doing?
Happy St. Patrick's Day to you too. And I'm Irish, so this is fantastic. I am wearing green, but it's more camo than green. But
Okay.
congratulations on the number of podcasts you've done. That is fantastic.
Thank you. I was going to tell you when we were in the green room earlier, this all started by a chance opportunity. I was volunteering with the Guelph Nighthawks a couple years ago during a game. At a halftime, they're like, "Hey, we need a volunteer to do cameras." I'm like, "I've never done it before," and they're like, "Come on, we'll show you." So the producer at the time, Kirk, showed me, and I ended up doing the cameras for the rest of the game.
That's
And
awesome.
the producer goes, "Have you ever done camera work before?" And I'm like, "No." And then they at the end of the game, they ended up paying me $50 for doing my camera work, which I didn't expect to do. And then they one of the guys, Steve Fay, who was with Rogers TV as a volunteer, he was with the Guelph Nighthawks, and he said, if you're interested in going further into camera work, apply to Rogers TV in Kitchener, and I'll put in a good word with Jordan Gruber for you. And that's how it led me to Rogers TV. And then before the pandemic struck, what was it, February or March 2020, I told Neil White after a game, I said, I'm going to start up my own podcast because I got a taste of the broadcasting bug, and it ended up leading me into my own podcast. So just doing something with the Nighthawks led me to Rogers, and then to end up doing my podcast.
That's fantastic. That, it's amazing how things can happen and develop, and chance meetings with people and opportunities that if you're not afraid to try, and especially when they were needing somebody, right? So the fact that you took the chance to try it and then look at the skill that you had, because obviously they paid you, right? They weren't like, "Oh, let's not remember this guy." They had immediately, pushed your career forward. So that's fantastic. I love that. That's a great story.
So I'm grateful to the Guelph Nighthawks, and like I said, I have to admit I was nervous because I'd never done camera work before, other than my phone at sporting events, and I was just trying to do a good job for them, and so I led to that, and then Steve Fay basically, it just one thing led to another, and then so it's taken me almost 50 years to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life, and
That's okay.
a lot of guests are telling me it's not when you start,
Nope.
it's how you finish.
Absolutely. I agree with that. We all take different paths to get where we're going to go. Sometimes it takes a weird turn somewhere else, and then eventually you end up where you want to go. I don't think that it's about always knowing where you're going to be and how to get there. I know that we hear all the time about, "Oh, you have to have a plan, you have to have a plan." But when you're 17 years old and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do with your career, you may have a million different interests. And I have a 16-year-old son, and he is trying to figure out what to do here, and I keep saying to him, "What do you like? because that's really what it comes down to. And sometimes it's the hobby that ends up being the career. Sometimes you take a path that you think this is what I really want to do, and then later find out, nah, I actually would sooner just do that as a hobby. And I actually think I want to do something else, but I don't know what that is. And sometimes it's about finding out more about what you don't want to do. And then when you find the thing you want to do and you love it, you love it. Right. And
Yeah,
that's what, yeah. So that's fantastic that you're getting
absolutely.
there.
I always loved sports and talking about sports, but back in the 90s, I'm not making excuses. They just didn't have this
They
platform.
didn't. No.
And then people were just like, take law and security, Chris. It's easy, whatever. Take it at Mohawk College, and I ended up doing it. And in hindsight, I really wish I had stayed with the broadcasting. But you know what? It's never too late.
Nope. Nope, it's not. I 100% agree with that. It's never too late. Anytime someone tells you that well, you should have done that sooner. You should have done this sooner. You know what? I think it's an obstacle that you just overcome, and that just makes you a stronger person for what it is. But also, you bring in experience from so many other things. And that's so much about what broadcasting really is having experiences, so that if you were a reporter or you are a podcaster or whatever it is, your experience that you bring in sometimes is you ask the questions that somebody who doesn't really have life experience wouldn't know to ask or even think about asking. And I think that's so key with this industry, is that it's made up of a bunch of different people that come in with diverse backgrounds, and sometimes people are later at getting involved in it, but at the same time it doesn't change. It just makes them a better broadcaster. I believe, I truly believe that. So
Well, with my current job in security over the years, I've had to interview people, I've had to ask questions, I've had to talk to different types of people. And I think those skills in security have actually helped me in a way with podcasting.
100%. I would say 100%. I think that's
And,
totally true.
and what I'm trying to do now is take some of my writing skills from writing reports at my other job and putting it into blogging. And
Mhm.
I figure, you know what, it's another skill to have, and I'm still improving my writing skills. But I just figure if I can do blogging on a regular basis with my podcasting and camera work and keep learning, I think that will help me.
Mhm. Oh, I think so, 100%. I think it's all about, having diverse skills, right? That you're just not that you only know how to shoot with a camera. You need to know how to talk to people, you need to know how to look for story ideas, you need to know how to write things down and kind of be creative. I mean, it's all about the creative process, and I think that's really it's great to see when people want to take stuff and they wanna go to the next level and they wanna learn new stuff to add to what they already have, right? And I think that's so much about what this industry really is about taking those creative skills and putting it, out there to the world for the world to see, right? I think
Yeah.
that's what it is. Yeah.
And when I do my blogging at nighttime, I sometimes I'm so tired I can't do it. So in the morning I wake up, I'm like, okay, I have a subject I want to write about, and I blog about it. And
Absolutely.
when with my podcast too, people think, oh, anybody can do a podcast from home. It's a lot of work. You
It is.
have to book guests, which is a full-time job itself. You have to arrange your schedule, which I'm working midnights with my guests. And then it's also sometimes guests have to cancel at the last minute. So you have to be able to roll with the punches. So I think I'm getting a few skills from doing the podcasting as well.
Absolutely. You're a full-time producer. That's what a producer is, right? Like
I
it's
never
perfect. Yes. It's all of that.
I never really thought of myself as a producer. I just thought about a guy trying to get into radio with this, but you're right. I
It's
guess it is a
producing.
form of producing.
It
So,
absolutely is, because 'cause you're producing it yourself, right? So you are a producer. You could add that to your credit 100% because you're booking the guests, you're doing all of that stuff, right? So, the fact that you're taking the time because 'cause you're gonna be researching the people too that you're talking to. So
yes.
you are the podcast producer as well as the podcaster. So you are that. You have my blessing that that is your accreditation now. So add that to your resume because you are a producer.
Okay. And I was gonna say this too. I'm really lucky with Rogers TV to get Neil White as my producer because the first night I'm gonna tell you this, I've never told anybody. The first night I did my first storm game, which was I think October 2019.
Mhm,
I didn't think I was going to get through the one game. I really thought, oh my God, I don't think I can do this.
mhm.
I'm sucking at it. But Neil White was so patient with me,
He is. Yeah.
and the crew took me in right away. They didn't like, what's this old guy doing in here? The crew was really good, and Neil gave me an opportunity. And then after I got through the first shift, I signed up for more shifts, and then I started getting better and more comfortable. And then we got shut down with the pandemic. And I told Neil after 18 months, you guys are going to have to retrain me again. And what I love about it, I talk a lot too, by the way. Uh, what I love about it is I'm learning something new every time I'm at a Storm game, because with TV, radio, whatever, things do happen and you got to go with the punches. And you know what I really like about Jeff and Neil? If I make a mistake or I don't know something, they will answer my question or they will show me what I need to do. And
Mhm.
then that way I know they don't like, hey, are you stupid or blah, blah, blah. There's
Nope,
no negativity.
nope.
It's a good environment to be in. And I really enjoy being with Rogers TV a lot.
That's good, I'm glad, and Neil is fantastic as a producer, as is Jeff, and, the great thing is that, with OHL, it takes a lot of, patience and stuff just with the things that happen in a live broadcast. I could not produce OHL hockey. There's no way I would ever have that ability. It takes a special kind of producer to do that, and I don't have that. And Neil is fantastic. He's a great, for me, he's a great colleague to work with, and I enjoy when Neil and I get to work on something. And it's few and far between, obviously, because of the pandemic. But we worked on a couple things together, and it's always good to have his skill set there. Like he's really good at being able to do things that I'm not strong at. So that's the great thing. And like really, the teamwork that goes into being at Rogers TV, it's I've never worked in an environment that has that much teamwork. Generally speaking, most of the places that I have worked, it's a little less than that. And honestly, it's like a family. We all have our own things that we bring to the table and our own insecurities, but like we kind of work together as a family and try to figure out, if I'm not good at something, how do I get better at it? And
Yeah.
like we all do that. And it's the same with our volunteers and our interns and stuff. We try to work with them to the best of whatever. There's some interns that may not enjoy working with certain producers and whatever, but that's like anything, right? You find what
Mhm.
you like and you try to adapt to it. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and the one thing I gotta work on, and I admit this, is the cable rolling or the
oh,
wrapping.
don't even ask me
I
about that.
I am awful at it, and I told Neil and Jeff, I said one day I will get good at it. I just right now want to focus on the camera aspect of it and the setup, the teardown, and I do want to keep learning, and eventually I am gonna overcome doing that. I always thought I was the only one that was bad at it, but apparently there's others that have struggled with it.
I am terrible at it. You can ask
Wow.
anybody that ever has had me roll a cable for them that they have to pull it apart and start again. And
Wow.
I mean, it's a technique, right? Like my
Yep.
husband, he makes fun of my cable rolling techniques. He works in TV and he always is like, "Really? Where did you learn this?" And I'm like,
Yep.
"Clearly not where I should have." So it's a thing, right? So you are not alone. I am just
Okay.
as bad. So,
And what I like about it is the atmosphere is so positive. I guess I've worked in another industry where it's always been negative and negative. You did this wrong, I'm still. I told my last guest this: when people pay me compliments, even with Neil, I'm like, I don't know how to take them because I'm so used to being in a negative environment, and it's just so nice to be in an environment where everybody's so positive and
mhm.
supportive and encouraging, and it makes you want to keep coming back. I wasn't even supposed to do the game last night, and like I said, I ended up coming in and helping out, and it was one of the better games of the year and
It
stuff.
it was a great game. I
Yes.
watched it. It was a
Yeah.
great game. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you definitely got like with that, that's just an opportunity all on its own, right? Because there was shootouts, there was all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Yes. So like I said, every shift I do there is a learning experience. And everybody also realizes this too. They're like, Chris, you're volunteering, you're not getting paid, but sometimes people don't see the bigger picture. Sometimes you have to pay your dues, do your volunteering, get your experience, and then it can lead to other things. People just think, oh no, if you're not getting paid, it's not worth your time. And I'm like, that's the wrong attitude to
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, you're right. Volunteering leads to so many different things, but you're volunteering your time, yes, but at the same time, you're learning stuff from that volunteer experience, right? You're networking, you're doing a whole pile of different things that you wouldn't necessarily do in your day-to-day job. And I volunteer with a number of different organizations in the region. And honestly, the things that, like, if I expect a volunteer to do it at Rogers TV, then I it's something I'm going to do too, right? Like, I never make anybody do something I wouldn't already do. But the other thing too is that I also, if I pay it forward by volunteering my time somewhere else as well. So I'm not getting paid when I'm with Waterloo Regional Crime Stoppers, but I take my skills and I'm able to give them and help them to get the word out about Crime Stoppers and those kind of things. So, like, I think volunteering, I have got so much more out of my life based on me giving time to somebody else. And that, as long as you get something out of it, whether it's that they appreciate what you're doing and they constantly tell you what an asset you are to the environment you're in, or whatever the case may be, then you want to do it. But you always learn something, right? Like, I always find that you learn something from the experiences that you have. You either decide, okay, I don't want to do that as a career, but I don't mind doing that as a hobby. Or the other thing is that you determine that this is actually more the path you might want to go, or whatever. But then you also get to meet people and learn about the community you're in, wherever you're volunteering, right? So, which is great.
I've made a lot of contacts, but I've also made a lot of new friendships here too.
Hmm. Yep, that's very true with volunteering, and just with Rogers in general, I would say. So,
And to be honest, without being with Rogers TV, a lot of my OHL podcasts I've done, I wouldn't have been able to probably get the guests on, because being with Rogers has helped me uh, get to know people from other teams. I've made
mhm.
friends and contacts with other teams across the league. So it's just been a wonderful experience, and I really look forward to doing the game tomorrow night against Sarnia. Every time I go in there, it's like I really look forward to going in there.
Mhm. Well, and you know what? Sarnia will be a good team to watch the game as well, right?
Yep.
I I always enjoy seeing the teams like from Sarnia and Windsor and sort of like down by the border, just because it's a little bit different hockey, I find. And I mean, I love the Guelph Storm. I've often said that. I don't know how many times I've said that out loud though on any kind of podcast, but I think this year especially, Guelph Storm looks like it's coming on to being a really, really, really good team. And I like the rivalry between them and London and them
Yep.
and Kitchener. And I like last night's game was a great game. So
Yep.
hopefully,
Absolutely.
hopefully tomorrow's will be too. I'm sure it will
Definitely.
be, but yeah.
Yes. So I was going to say, and one thing I've also learned too, Carly, and this is from Eric Smith of the Raptors. When I first started this podcast, it took me 4 months to get guests to come on. I wasn't very good, to be honest, but also I had everything scripted. And Eric gave me some advice. He goes, Chris, it's okay to write stuff down, but when you do a podcast, it's like a radio. You take it like radio, talk to your guests like you're at an arena, stadium, you're just at a movie or something like that, and it makes for better conversation.
Absolutely. I think he's on to that, right? Like, I think the best conversations and the best interviews are non-scripted, because it's just an organic conversation between two people. And I mean, it's nothing wrong with having notes that you want to go
Yes.
to, right?
Yeah.
And or something that you've seen in someone's profile that you were like, "Oh, I want to ask them that," or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's about having the conversation with the person, because what you may want to talk to me about, or what we may have thought we were going to talk about, we may never get to, because there could be something that we're talking about now that's much more interactive or much more interesting, or something that the conversation just goes in a different direction, right? So,
Yep.
but that's an organic conversation. So
Yep.
I 100% agree with that.
And one thing, and I told Neil this too, I'm very lucky with what I'm doing. And I was always brought up to be humble. So all I'm going to do is just keep improving, keep learning, and just keep being myself. And not, and if I am lucky enough to make it into radio, I'm not going to let that change who I am.
And that's good, right? Like, I think people enjoy authenticity, but they also enjoy when someone, they know they're good, but they don't have the ego. Oh, I'm amazing and I'm the best person, and you want to talk to me because it's only me, right? Like, I think it's about being humble, but also recognizing that there's still so many things to learn. even when you think you know, you don't know. And
No.
I've learned that over the 27 years that I've been in media. I can tell you, when I think I know something, I get slapped around a bit and find out, no, I didn't know what I thought I knew. So yeah, it's very true.
And this is what I told Jeff and Neil too. Pay it forward. We had some new volunteers the other day at Rogers, and I actually ended up showing them what to do. And I was like, it was kind of a great feeling because the guys did it for me when I started. And I said, if I'm ever good enough to keep doing the camera work with Rogers, I'm going to pay it forward. And that's the
Mhm,
same with podcasts. I've got some volunteers that want to learn how to do podcasting, and they want to ask me, and I'm like, really, me?
mhm,
And it's kind of a nice feeling. So
mhm.
I'm gonna try to help people as much as they've helped me.
That's awesome. That's the best way to be, right? When you can pay it forward and you can help others learn what you already know, which is great, right? So that's
Definitely.
awesome. That's awesome.
Okay. Are you okay for some questions? And are you okay for a little more time?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Let's do this.
And that's another thing I like about StreamYard too, because sometimes I can forget what I want to ask, and I can
Yeah.
put it on my little graphic here as well. So, and I got your Twitter thing promoted down here
I
as
did see
well.
that. That's fantastic. I hope I get some new followers because I'm not as active on Twitter as I should be, but
Yeah. It's
I
a lot of work. It's a lot of work building up your
social media is a
audience.
lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and Eric Smith told me this too. Even Jerry Howarth, who did the Jays games, he even
Mhm,
told me, he goes, "Don't worry about your audience right now. What you're doing is more valuable." And he goes, "Just keep improving, keep doing your shows, and eventually it will. The audience thing will work.
mhm. I think that's 100% true.
Definitely."
I agree with
First,
that. No,
first
go ahead.
question. First question I want to ask you: can you just tell my audience just quickly a little bit about yourself, and when did you decide you wanted to pursue a career in broadcasting, TV, and media?
All right. So, my background is that I have actually been in media for 27 years. So I went to Conestoga College. My brother also went through for broadcasting. But what's interesting is that my career path at that time when I was in school was that I wanted to actually be a fashion designer. So everybody in my family always thought that was the path I was going to go. And my brother Steve, who is the play-by-play for the Guelph Storm, which was one of your guests, he was at Conestoga College for broadcasting, and he needed somebody to come and help. And I said, "Well, I'm not doing anything. I'll come with you." And I have always been fascinated with like pop culture and media to some degree, but I always I love TV. Like I can name probably every 80s TV show and all of the theme music and all of that stuff. I've always been that, and you can look behind me and see that there's pop culture around. I've always been fascinated that way. In terms of it, though, it wasn't until I walked into Conestoga College on a weekend with my brother, and I'm sure he was not overly thrilled to have his kid sister come with him, but he needed this set of hands to help do things. And I walked in, and all of a sudden I thought, these are my people. This is what I want to do. And it clicked. And so then I came home and said to my mom, I think I want to go into broadcasting. But I think at that time, everybody thought, oh, she's just following her brother. Like that's what she wants to do. And because he's the older brother and that's the direction. And to be honest, it never was that. I appreciated what he was doing, but that wasn't my interest because he wanted to be in front of the camera. My desire wasn't so much to be in front of the camera. I just wanted to know how to make things. I wanted to know how to make TV. And at that time I didn't know if it was TV or radio, but I was like, I want to know how to do this. And so I kind of like switched gears, and broadcasting was the direction I went. And I've been in and out of the industry a little bit. Like there were times that I was laid off from things and I had to pursue other things, but I always had my foot in the door doing stuff, right? Like I was always either volunteering, and at that time it was cable, well, it was cable 3 in Fergus. Now it's Cogeco cable 14. And I did stuff there trying to hone those skills and do things and learn how to shoot and edit and all of that kind of stuff. But my path has always been very much media focused. And I mean, I've worked in news, that I was a lineup producer, an assignment editor, a news writer. I did web writing. I did a whole pile of things. And every time an opportunity would come, I would do it. I was an associate producer on Final Round, which was just a show on CTV, but it was CKCO at the time. And then I kind of took that over, and I did research for Province Wide, that I did a lot of booking interviews and stuff, that I was an associate producer on that. But really early on, I worked at 570 News when it was 570 News. And it was News Talk 570, actually, if you want to go back that far. And I have always kind of bounced around doing a pile of things, and none of my career path has been a straight, like, it's not straight, it's curved around, and I've done different things and whatever. But honestly, like, when I went to Rogers 8 years ago to produce daytime, uh that was, I think, everything that I had done in my career kind of was, okay, this is where you're supposed to be. Because the second I was hired for that job, I was like, everything that I've done to this point actually makes sense to this role, even though my career path made no sense. Like, because I was like a traffic coordinator, and then I was, a commercial writer, and I wasn't a great commercial writer. I was terrible at it, even though I loved writing. And so the big thing for me really was just, I want to make television, but I want to learn how to do that. And newscasts are great, but that's not making TV. That is a live broadcast where everything can go wrong, like what we were talking about off the top. I wanted to do what daytime was, even though that was a live component at one point before it isn't anything now. But then I started to learn how to make television and shoot television and think about how I wanted shows to go and whatever. So that's sort of where I developed. But I met my husband at CTV News. He's a cameraman there still. And then we have two kids. That we have a 13-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son. So, and I think they're leaning towards media, and I keep steering them in a different direction because I know how hard this can be as a career. But at the same time, I love what I do, and I love the environment that is at Rogers, and the fact that we do get to meet so many interesting people, and that we get to try things, right? Like, shows that may not be successful sometimes are the best shows that I've worked on, and that you had fun and you learned something. And I learned something new in my job all the time. Like today I was shooting a series that we're just starting, and honestly, there are things that I was like, okay, I would shoot that differently if I did that. But when I edit it, you'll never know that I didn't like how I shot something, because that's the great thing about the puzzle pieces of creating television, is that you can do all of that. So, but I mean, I think I was pursuing TV before I was ever pursuing TV. I think it was that pop culture thing, because I loved watching television and wanting to know how they did stuff. And then all of a sudden it just kind of came together when Steve and I went to Conestoga College, and I got to see how they made their project. So I think, after a very long-winded answer, that is how I pursued TV.
No worries. No worries. I was gonna say, and I'm hoping eventually, maybe this summer, I can learn a little more about graphics and the audio side of it too.
Mhm.
Just because the more I can learn,
Absolutely.
even if I'm not the greatest at it, the more I can learn, the more skills that will
Mhm.
help me in the long run.
Absolutely. And like, the thing about audio is that it's such a key and component to a show, for sure. But it's one of those where, like, really it takes a special person to be able to learn audio, but also it takes a special person to teach it, because there's so many components to it. I am okay at audio, but I know there's lots of people who are fantastic at it. And I have volunteers that are fantastic at being able to do the audio part of it. But the great thing too is that we have people within the producing roles at Rogers that are amazing at that. So and I believe Neil is somebody who is really good at it. So that's somebody that to think about. But the graphics end of it, there's so many programs now that make graphics really easy. Like Canva is a great example of one. I use it a lot, and I'm able to create show graphics that way. But then there's Photoshop, and there's a whole pile of things. But that's the one great thing, is that you know what you want to do. So by knowing that, then you're able to talk to Patty, or talk to Neil, or talk to me, or talk to whoever, and then we can zero in and kind of help you find where you want to go and who can help you with that. Because
Hmm.
that's the great thing
Yep.
about our producer team, is that there's just, everybody has different skills and
Hmm.
different things that we're good at. So
definitely. And I'm hoping to get to learn some more this summer as well.
Mhm.
Now, one thing I wanted to ask you: did you have any mentors when you were starting out?
So, I had this question in my class. One of my students asked me, and I said that the interesting thing about mentorship is that sometimes you can have somebody mentor you from a distance and they don't even know they're your mentor. And so that was kind of what happened for me. Is that I looked to people that not necessarily were in the industry. So, or the direction I was going to go. So when I was at Conestoga College, Dan Fisher was a legendary radio broadcaster here in Waterloo Region. He has since passed away. He was on CFCA, and I knew him because my grandparents listened to that station. It wasn't something that I was listening to, but they were, and I spent a lot of time with my grandparents when I was younger. And so when I met Dan Fisher, I knew I didn't really necessarily want to be in radio, but because he was such a kind, wonderful person, I looked at him as a mentor, but not for the career path I wanted. I looked at him as a mentor for the person I wanted to be because he was such a kind person and he was always giving and helpful and always kind of like had a good thing to say about everybody. And sometimes I think that's a challenge, right? Because we meet people that really push every level of who we are to try to, like, you're trying to be a good person. Dan was that person who was always such a wonderful, just a wonderful, kind-hearted soul. And I looked at what his career was like, and I tried to pattern myself in the way that, you take opportunity and you use that opportunity to the best of your ability, and to try to make it something, even if it isn't where you think you're going to be now, it might be something later on, right? Because you just don't know where your path is going to land. So for him, it was about, when I looked at him, it was about the humanity he had for people and the way he was in the community and how he was around people in the community in a variety of different ways. And he volunteered his time with different organizations, and just such a lovely, lovely person. So he was a mentor from the media end, in the sense of that I wanted to look at someone like him and become that way. But in terms of, like, I've had mentors in different ways. So, like, when I worked at CFPL and I was a commercial writer and I was struggling, Kelly Martin was somebody that I worked with, and she's went on to be a teacher, and she teaches high school. She was a fantastic person, just to sort of pick her brain about different things and try to understand how to do stuff. And I just needed somebody that was like a big sister, because she was a few years older than me, and, or, well, still is, because she's still alive. She was someone that I could talk to and sort of like ask her, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, can you help me? And she was fantastic that way. And then when I worked in news, Brent Hansen, he brought me in, and he was a mentor to me in a way that I needed. Him and I had a very fun relationship. Like, I could say just about anything to him that other people in the newsroom probably couldn't. And he gave me opportunities in ways that I wouldn't have had, because he could see something in me, and he let me produce his show. He let me try different things that I wanted to try in media, like in the television end of it, without being on camera necessarily, but he gave me lots of opportunity. And I appreciated everything that he gave me, because he saw something, right? Like, he could see something that I wanted to do. And if I talked to him and I said to him, this is what I was interested in, it never went on deaf ears. He would find a way to make it happen, or he would find a way to let me learn something. And I love that, because I think about when I was first learning the news game, so to speak. He was the assistant news director, and also the 6 o'clock anchor, and I was intimidated by him at first, and then all of a sudden I just started to see the humanity of him, and that he wasn't so serious. And then once I kind of figured that out, then it was okay to not be perfect, because I always felt like you had to do everything perfect. And I mean, in some ways, perfection is what people are expecting, but he certainly let me make mistakes in ways that I'm not sure that if I had a different person who was my supervisor, I may not have had that. And he was fantastic that way. And I've worked with a lot of really great people over the years that have been mentors in different ways, not necessarily career, but certainly just people that you want to take a look at what they're like as a person, and sort of try to emulate that, and then that sometimes helps you in your career path. So I mean, like, it's been great, being able to look back at stuff. So that's one of the things that I can honestly say, that when I think about the mentorship of people, it's sometimes not so much career as it is about the person that you're working with and trying to be like them. Like Kyle Christie's another great example of someone that I worked with and still do work with at the college, who is a kind person and really likes to see the best in everybody. And he's had a really great career as well. So it's one of those where I tend to look towards people that I like as humans, and sort of want to be like them, or I want to work with them. And you kind of try to work with the people that are like-minded, right? And you want to be around people that bring positivity and help you with stuff. And I certainly have had that in my career. And I've had the pitfalls of people that, were not great to work with, but I've certainly been blessed with the opportunities I've been given. And like Brent kind of discovered me when I was working in radio and kept asking, "Hey, you want to come and be at CTV?" When it was CKCO at that time. And I was like, no, I'm not ready. And I don't know that I want to. And then all of a sudden, and I was scared. That's really what it came down to. And he was the one that kind of said, no, I can get you where you want to go. And so that's the big one for me.
And that leads to my next question. You already answered this one about your first job. How important is volunteering or internships in your career?
It's big. Like, the funny thing about it is that you think it's not. I think when you're younger, you think, I'll volunteer and it's not going to really do anything, or it'll look good on a resume. That's what I think a lot of people think, is it'll look good on a resume. And I can tell you, yes, it does look good on a resume. However, you get so much out of it if you put into it, right? So like, it's like anything, right? Like, if you don't put time and effort into something, then you only get what you put into it. And for me, I love volunteering, and I love meeting different people in the community, and being in a volunteer situation, like with Waterloo Regional Crime Stoppers. That came out of Daryl Paquette, who is the police coordinator for it, that he was doing stuff on Rogers TV. And him and I hit it off. And then he asked me if I could join his board. And from there, a TV series grew, a training video that we did for Ontario Police College, which wasn't where it was supposed to go, but that's where it landed. And we like campaigns that we've worked on, and it's opened up that I've got to do things with WRPS that I wouldn't have got to do if I wouldn't have had that relationship with him and with that organization. But then it's also led me to the police chorus and getting to know the people behind the scenes there, and the relationship I have with them. And then it's also opened the doors to Knights of Columbus, because they're a contact within that as well. And then working with Martin Hickey on projects to do with the Waterloo Knights of Columbus, and all of those things. But it's the stories you get to find out about people, and just the skill sets that you bring to that organization that they don't have sometimes, or the fact that they just need somebody else to say to them, you're on the right path. And I get so much out of the idea of volunteering. And then internships are always great if you can get them, because those are unique opportunities to really walk into a situation and become a sponge and to see things. So the first internship I had was at the new Red Green show, which was big in the 90s, with Steve Smith and Rick Green. And it was shot out of Hamilton at the time when I started my career. And so I called them, and that's back before the internet was anything. There wasn't the internet. So I called them and I said, I'd like to do a television internship with you. And they didn't really know what that concept was, because again, they didn't have that, because they were a small production company. And so they agreed to have me come, and I got to be on the set, and I got to be in the office. And then I got to meet different producers at CH at the time, and they had a Mother's Day telethon. And from that internship, I ended up working on the Mother's Day telethon for 2 years as an associate producer. And I wouldn't have had that if I hadn't done that internship, because sometimes internships, even though it wasn't a paid one, it was out of my pocket. I stayed in Hamilton at a hotel, which when I say it was my pocket, it was actually my parents that they paid for it for me to be able to do it. But it was an opportunity to be able to do something that I wanted to do, to see if in fact I really, this is the path I wanted to go down, right? And it led me to a lot of the things I've done in my career now. And the other thing that was great about it is I still am in contact with a lot of the people that I worked with on that production. That they're friends with me on Facebook, and from time to time we talk back and forth about different things, and I can see where their careers have went, and they can see where mine have went. So internships really, like, if you can get in anywhere that it's somewhere where it can develop you, if you can go in and be like a sponge, and anything that they ask you to do it. And there's no real, like, when people say, "Oh, well, I only got to make coffee or whatever," that's only the opportunity that was not really presented to you, because that's not true. I think if you are worth your weight, someone will see that, and that making coffee, that's just if you're someone that didn't have any, like, didn't ask questions, didn't get involved, didn't do all of that stuff. Because I mean, I had to pick up lunch orders, but that's not the only thing I did. I did so many other things that they let me be on set, and they let me duct tape things, and they let me be a part of the creative process in ways that, if I had just been a wallflower and I hadn't asked questions, maybe I would have only picked up lunch orders and got to stand back and go, "Oh, that's interesting." But it's about that. And I think people value when someone asks a question. That's when, especially with my volunteers and my interns and all of them, if they ask me the questions that will help them with their skills, I'm going to give them the keys to the Cadillac and let them try. I've had interns and co-ops and volunteers that they get to do the whole show. They call the shots, and I stand back and I watch and I let them develop their skills, because that's what it's all about, right? Like, it's paying it forward. I've been given a great opportunity in my career, and when I look at what other people that are trying to develop those skills, if they come to me and they tell me that they are interested in doing this, and then they ask for my help, or at least, my advice, if I see that they can do it, I let them do it. I don't need to direct a show. Why do I need to direct the show? If you want to try it, I'm going to give you every opportunity to try it. And that's why I think internships and volunteering and all of that is so important, because of the fact that it gives you the chance to develop skills before you get paid to do those skills necessarily. And I mean, we pay you in other ways with, pizzas and, and swag and friendships and all of that stuff. You get so much out of it if you put into it, right? So that's like, and what you were talking about earlier, and what you love about Rogers. And that's really like what I love about the fact that when you do volunteering, you get so much out of it that you just, like, you can't put a price on it. Like, there's no value to it, the price value, because it's so amazing what you get if you put in the effort, right? Like, it's really about what you put into it. If you're, you expect, that's a difference. It's not about expecting, it's about having fun and enjoying the friendships and stuff, and the people that you work with, and learning the skills. Because, like, I look at Rogers, and when I came in, I had been in the industry a long time, and then 8 years ago I landed at Rogers, and I didn't know some of the things I was supposed to know in my job, and yet they just kind of said, "Okay, well, let's develop that." And now I do all of the things I didn't know how to do, because I didn't know how to direct a show. I knew how to sit in the back and tell a director, "Okay, we're going to drop that item and we're going to do this." But I didn't know how to do that. I just could see somebody else that knew how to do it. So it's those kind of things, right? But it's so valuable. And I think if you put the time in, you get where you want to go. Like, it just happens. I really believe. So,
I'm hoping to try to get into a radio station this summer to volunteer. I've already been rejected a few times, and that's something I've learned too. You're gonna face rejections in this industry at some point. Don't take it personally. Just keep using it as motivation to keep improving, learning, and then eventually you'll get an
absolutely.
opportunity. So don't take the rejection part too personally.
Exactly, because you know what? Some of the biggest rejections I've had in my life, actually, it turned out that that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because I landed somewhere else, and it was a path that was a better path for me than, like, there's jobs that I made the short list for, And I would have been perfect for it had they hired me, and they went with somebody else. And, I don't know what their career turned out to be like, because I sometimes who gets a job, sometimes you don't. And the big thing with the rejection to that, it just made me want it more. And it just made me go in a different direction or find something else that I was more interested in or whatever. And really, like, the big thing for me was that I look at it later and I realize that if I had taken that opportunity, I had been lucky to have that opportunity, it wouldn't have led me to where I am now, and I'm further ahead now in where I am. Because you look at the path that would have been the straightest path, and sometimes
Yep.
the straightest path isn't the greatest path to take. It's just the easiest path. And I think that rejection just makes you stronger and it makes you decide whether is this really what I want. If someone tells you right out of the gate, okay, I don't think you're very good at this, how much do you take stock in what somebody that you don't really know telling you that, right? Like, I've had lots of people over the years tell me, "Well, you're never gonna amount to this." I had a guy that was a producer, or sorry, he was a director, but he was a producer director, tell me I would never be a good producer. I've proved him wrong, and I've proved him wrong multiple times, and with the amount of things that accomplishments that I've had since then, every single time I win something or I have another show that's produced, and I produce things all the time, I'm always like, "In your face, man." So, like, it's whatever drives you, right? Like, when you look at stuff and you think about, "Well, this person said this to me." It's, what do you do with it? Do you believe in what somebody that you probably don't have a whole lot of vested interest in tells you? Or do you say, "No, I don't care what you think. I'm gonna go do this, and I'm gonna prove you wrong," or you just forget about it and move on, and their opinion doesn't matter. And it's whatever you do with it. Because I mean, I with my students at the college, I try to be their coach. I never want to make them feel like what they're pursuing is wrong. Even if I don't think in my heart of hearts that they're gonna end up necessarily being the on-air person that they think they're going to be, or whatever the case may be, I would never tell them that, because that's not for me to decide. That's for them to decide where they wanna go, right? Like, it's because what I see in somebody might be different than what somebody else sees, and broadcasting is a very subjective industry, and what I think is great television, you may not think is great television, right? So you let the populace decide it. And I when I'm marking students, I don't mark them against each other either. I mark them from the pattern that I see them doing, and I'm always coaching them to the next level. So if they start off here, by the time they're done with me, they're here because I want them to succeed, because that's what I want to see. I never want someone to fail at anything, because I don't want to fail at it. So I don't want them to fail. And it's about coaching and mentoring and helping and teaching people the skills that I have. Because really, like, television, as much as it can be very challenging in a lot of ways, it's a very basic skill set that you use to be able to do stuff. And it's about storytelling, and it's about being creative. And sometimes it's as a group, sometimes it's more singular, but it's about putting something out into the world. And rejection, I just don't have time for that with people
Yep.
and I don't have time for people being mean to other people.
Yep.
I think it's important to always have that positivity. And so when you get rejected, just decide how you want to treat that. Is that where I want to be? Well, I don't really care what that person says. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do what I want to do because I can. And you just keep pushing until you get where you want to go.
I'm using it as motivation, and then I've been lucky enough to get Dan Shulman on, Eric Smith, Jerry Howarth, Chuck Swirsky on, and these people are like, "How are you doing this?" And I'm like, "Well, thanks to you, I'm using it as motivation,"
Well,
and
there you
that's what
go.
that no, it's driving me. And one thing is, I don't do any sour grapes notes or anything like that. I just basically move on from it.
Mhm.
Keep it. I keep it as part of my motivation to keep improving and working harder, and that's the way I look at it, and that's going to happen. And don't take it personally either. Just move on.
Just move
And
on.
I'm hoping this summer, if not in Guelph, maybe in Kitchener or somewhere else, I can get into a radio station once a week at least, and learn a little bit more about the radio industry. And I'll just get a hopefully,
Mhm.
like I said, keep doing this podcast, doing a good job at it, and somebody will give me that opportunity.
And, I think it's really about the fact that you're putting it out there, because, like, as much as it sounds hokey, when people say, "Oh, just put it out there to the world." But you know what? In order to see it, you have to believe it, but you also have to speak it. And so I think, like, my career, it has been so much about, if I wanted something and I wanted it bad enough, everybody knew I wanted it. It wasn't a matter of me pretending it was like hiding it away and saying, "Oh, I don't want anybody to know this because I'll jinx it." I don't think it's about jinxing it. I think it's about the fact that you live the mantra of it too. And when you start telling people that this is what I want, then it starts to become in the world and it becomes a thing. The job at Rogers TV, I wanted to produce community television, but I wanted to produce daytime television that was a talk show. And I threw that out there, and it happened. And I didn't throw it out just once. I threw it out multiple times because I was finished with news. And news is a hard industry, right? Like that's an industry all onto itself. And news is very hard. And I had hit a point where I couldn't do it anymore. That I didn't love the environment I was in and I had to leave. And I knew that. And it was one of those where I held on longer than I should have. And I got to a breaking point where it was like, I need to be somewhere else. And so I met with, I talked to a therapist because I was struggling with a lot of stuff. And I talked to a therapist and we talked about the fact that you need to put things out into the world that you want and positive things, right? So that was the positive energy when it came to career, when it came to life, it came to whatever. And it was about the positive thinking. And once you start to put that out there and you say, well, this is what I want, and this is what I know I can do, suddenly things open up, people you meet open up, things change, and you can feel a shift. Like there's a positive shift that happens because I put that out there that I wanted to produce a daily talk show. And I literally, and I did, wasn't even thinking daytime so much. I just was throwing it out there and I love for it to be local. And that was kind of what I was saying. And I wasn't so much thinking Rogers TV, even though I knew Rogers TV was there because obviously it's been around forever and that's where everybody goes to learn things and stuff. So it wasn't so much Rogers TV, but I was putting it out there. I want a local talk show. And I had said that 3 months earlier. And then I had a phone call that they asked me to apply. And I was like, who knew that I wanted to do that? But it was because I kept telling people, you know what would be really great if I got out of news and I produced a daily talk show. I would love that. And I kept saying it enough that people either just said, just give her the talk show so we don't have to hear about it or whatever. But it's the connection of putting it out there and that positive thing of, I know I could do this. I know I would be good at this because I think this is what my skill set is. Because when I was working in news, if you look at the difference between news at noon and 6 o'clock news at noon has, yes, those news components, but it has a lot more lifestyle, or at least it did at the time when I worked at CKCO or CTV. And that was what I liked. I liked all of that lifestyle component where they had the kitchen segments and all of that. I didn't like hard news because no one wants to talk about, children dying and all of the bad things that happen in the world. That doesn't feed me as a person. And I know it's relevant and it's important, but that wasn't the path that I thought I loved it at the time when I broke a story or I was part of the team that was breaking a story or whatever. You love that adrenaline rush. And even in a live newscast, you love the adrenaline that comes with it. But when you start to have a hard time being able to deal with the things that are happening in the world that are the hard news, and you're looking towards the lifestyle end of something where it's like, how do I make bacon where it's really crispy and that's what's feeding you, it's time to jump out. And that's, like when Foodland Ontario, who I love as a guest, was the guest I was looking forward to in the newscast we were doing, I knew it was time. And that's, that's the big thing. But honestly, it's about putting things out there and taking what you can get and really the energy that you can put out there because it's about positivity, I think, and that helps and networking, right? Like all of it.
Absolutely. And I try to have I've never had one shift at Rogers where I have had a negative shift where I was upset with somebody or I was in a bad frame of mind, and it's just like really refreshing. And a lot of people do know at Rogers and with the NBL what my goals are and to get in the radio. And I got to look at it this way too, Carly. I'm way ahead of where I was 2 years ago.
And that's exactly it, right? Like so that's the great thing about it is that you're already that much further ahead. And when you think about all the guests that you've interviewed on your podcast, and it's a list, right? Like, and it's a who's who. Like I see your stuff, and you approach people that I would be afraid to approach because I'd be like, oh, they'll say no to me, and yet I mean, I feel like I could do it, but I just don't. And I think it's great that you do that because it puts it out there, but also it gives them a platform to come on and help you foster those skills. And that's so important because it's about working together. Like I love when media work together, not against each other. Like as much as I'm married to somebody who's the competition, I love the fact like, it's the camaraderie of the media, right? Like, him and I always laugh about it because he's Bell Media and I'm Rogers. We don't talk about, stuff that you can't talk about at home because it's a company thing, but we do talk about the fact that it's great when you're at a scene and you like, and this has happened with him and I, where all of a sudden I roll into something and he's there, and then the two of us are side by side. And most people don't realize we're married to each other because we don't have the same last name, and it's kind of humorous to us that when someone clues into it that we're and then they realize, oh, but they're competitors.
Hmm.
But the good thing is that like community television isn't really competing against news so much, but
Yeah.
sometimes we are. Like when
Yeah.
it comes to election night, it's on. And if I can be in the field and I beat him to something or I get something, it's a great feeling. I'm not gonna lie, because it's that competitive nature. But you know,
Are you still okay for a few more
yeah,
minutes? Two more
absolutely,
questions? Okay.
absolutely.
This one I wanted to ask you. What's a normal day like as a producer like?
Oh.
And what are some of the differences from producing a radio show to a TV show?
So, okay, so I'll do the radio television comparison right now. So for the TV side, I produce the technical side of it, right? So everything that you see on his show in terms of like guests and stuff, I have nothing to do with. I may suggest a guest, but I don't really have that Mike Farwell and his producer team do that. I do all of the television components. So they feed me the information of who the guest is, the graphics that like the subject graphics, and then I can kind of take what they say and tweak it or keep it the same or whatever. We take their audio feed, and then basically when they go to commercial break, we, because of the fact that master control is working from home, we just go to the slate of the 570, or well, I guess the City News 570 logo that comes up, and then you'll hear music underneath it until we rejoin again. So from that standpoint, it's different because I play the game of follow the leader. So they're the leader and I just follow what they're doing. I have interns for that now because we've been able to allow people to come back in and
Hmm.
work there. And so we participate as much as we possibly can in the conversation. Sometimes it's that we're the ones sending an email to them because we disagree with them or whatever. Or if they throw out a question and we can see that the phone lines aren't as active, we sometimes will send a question because we don't usually call, but they always acknowledge that it's Rogers TV that's involved in it. Like it'll be producer Carla said blah blah blah, or one of the interns, whoever it is, has a comment or whatever. So from that standpoint, it's playing the game of follow the leader a little bit more than me being the producer in that, because I would be looking for the guests and stuff. I don't with that, other than their pictures. And sometimes, like it's hard to find pictures because there's not everybody's on social media. So that can be a challenge. And sometimes it's logos you have to use and things like that. So it's a different mindset with that than when I'm producing an actual show where I have creative control. So in that one, I don't, which isn't a terrible thing, because having creative control sometimes is dangerous when you're someone like me who likes to add elements into everything. So that show's pretty cookie cutter in the way it works, but the great thing about that for us is it's a great training ground for people that don't necessarily know how television goes together. So it's a great relationship between us from the radio and television side, that our two stations merge together and we're able to work. And I went to college with Mike Farwell as well. He was in the same grade, it was same year as I was. So I've known Mike for 27 years. And it's interesting because I always did technical stuff with him in college and nothing has changed. 27 years later, I'm producing the TV side of his show. And so it's great for us to have that synergy with the radio partners with us. And we kind of have got to work together because of that show. Even though they're at Iron Needles and we're at Grand Crest, we're still on the line with each other in different ways and whatever. So that producing is very different from what I do in my role with the at Rogers, where it shows that I am directly the producer, it's a weird day in the life, like, because I can go from, so I do the 570 broadcast Wednesday through Friday, and then Monday and Tuesday I teach at the college, and then I produce other shows throughout the day. So for me, the producer day could be that I'm working on in studio and I'm booking guests specifically for that show, and then I can go from doing that to filming and taping a segment for trending. So trending went online instead of how it was because of the pandemic. So we started to have to be more interactive with that show. So it was a show and tell show, but then you had to figure out, how do you use two boxes and do a show and tell? So we had to get creative with that. And it was booking guests, but Aaliyah very much was the person who was booking a lot of the guests towards, especially during the pandemic, because of the fact that she was a name in her own right, that, you know, people were starting to know who she was, and was able to do all of that stuff. So Aaliyah is fabulous to work with, and I could kind of go, okay, here you go, and I would do all the creative stuff. Like once she got the interview, I would create the graphics for it, I would create the intro into the segment, or any of that stuff, and her and I would collaborate on a lot of the different direction we wanted to go and who we wanted to talk to and things, and that's sort of the way that that show works. In studio is very much talking heads, so I would book guests that I knew could talk for 7 minutes or whatever, and as we go forward, we have a new host on it, Danielle Jaworski. Her and I are now looking at retooling it a little bit just to make it a different show, because it's a different host, but still have that same content. So I like to work with my community producers and have them, and the hosts have them have a major say in how they want to see the show go. Not all producers are like that, and not specific to Rogers TV, but just in general. I like to work to know what everybody's interested in, because we all come with different backgrounds. So for me, I'm interested in pop culture, but they may not have any interest in that. They might want to talk about science or whatever. So if it's something that feeds them, I get them to kind of come up with what they want. So in the day in the life of me and a normal day of producing, I am probably doing 3 to 4 shows a day in some way, shape, or form, whether it's creating graphics or intros and extras or elements that go into that specific show, or booking guests. Sometimes it's talking to the host and going through things. Like today, as an example, I did 570 this morning and I was done at noon. Then I went and I had a phone meeting as I was driving to my shoot that was at 1 o'clock. And I was having a conference call with Danielle, who is the host of In Studio, talking about, you know, like, let's think about this. Why don't we change this up? Why don't we try that? So we had that conversation. Then I went into the shoot that I'm with, because I'm developing a show with Diane Freeman that's about keto and the keto lifestyle. So I was shooting with her. And then after I was finished that, I came back and then I went through all the emails that have come in as the day went on about people responding back to different shows and stuff. And then with Money Matters with Mike Braga, that show, I don't actually book the guests. I do all of the technical creative stuff behind it, but they book the guests, and then I kind of just get the what the questions that they're going to ask, and I look through it, and then I come up with elements that I think would be interesting to put in the show, or be real, or whatever the case may be. So depending on who the producer, or sorry, who the host is and who's the concept came with, I let them do what they want to do, and then I sort of work with them. And then I've had, like, On the Canvas and Mindful Makers, their shows were stuff that they created on their own, and then I just said, you know what, that'd be really great for Rogers TV. Can I cut it down and put it on the channel? And then they have creative input about it, like that. I'll show them what the final product looks like, and if they don't like something, I can change it or tweak it or whatever. But really, it's taking a look at other people's shows sometimes and going, that would be great to see on the channel, because I didn't think of that, and or I don't have time to be able to do that. Like Mindful Makers with Agnes Nieudomski. Honestly, the girl is a genius with the kids show that she has done. And I saw it because my kids took her summer camp, and it was when everything was online. They created all these videos because of the pandemic. And I went, that's a TV show. And then and she lives near me, so I was able to kind of cross paths when we were walking our dogs and be like, Agnes, I think you have a TV show, and I'm willing to cut it down and turn it into something to air on the channel. And the concept that she had and all of the elements were there. And I just basically said, okay, so it's an hour. Let's cut it down to 30 minutes or 20. I think it's 28:30 or something. Anyway, cut it down to that and put it into the show. But it's taking other people's concepts and helping them become what it is that they want it to be. Some people have an idea, but they don't know how to do it and how to put it together. And then my role as a producer is to take that idea and turn it into what they want, or something that might be even bigger than what they expected, and help them story tell. And sometimes, like with Aaliyah, I had the concept for trending and I needed a host. And she was working on in studio as a floor director. And I saw the way she interacted with people and how they really loved talking to her, and how she was just having a conversation about different things. And they were all laughing and enjoying their time with her. And I was watching it and I thought, you know what? She'd be a really good host because she just has that dynamic chemistry with people. And then I said to her one day, when she was walking past me, I'm like, hey, I have an idea. I have a show that I want you to host. And it was just sort of like, I think she was shocked by it, but it was one of those where it was just an organic thing that came to mind. And I fell in love with that show because it gave me a different skill set than what I was doing. Because I was just basically a studio producer and I wasn't out in the field the way I wanted to be. I had the community come to me as opposed to me going to the community. And that show became that. And so we would, you know, like before the pandemic, we were out shooting 3 times a week or twice a week, and we would just stack the day to shoot. And then I have days where I sit and edit. Like Mondays now we're editing when I'm teaching. So I teach in the afternoon, so I edit in the morning, and then after I'm done teaching, I come back and I start editing and finishing what I'm doing. And that's kind of the role of it. But there's no real honest every day is the same day kind of thing, because that's not true at all with how our jobs work. And I think Neil probably could say the same thing to that, and Patty probably said the same thing, that it's one of those where there's really no real same day every day. Because even with 570 doing that broadcast, there are things that get thrown at you that's a curveball because they had a guest cancel and then they have to change gears and they don't always remember to tell us. So we have these moments of, okay, where are they going? And then, you know, so it's that kind of stuff. But it makes for great television, and it makes for fun, and it makes for the unknown, which is great. So I love that about it.
I've actually had a few guests cancel on me at the last minute, or they had cold feet and they didn't want to tell me that they changed their mind, which is their decision. So I still went on with my podcast, and I've learned how to ad lib and go with the punches. And Eric Smith's, I keep bringing him up because he told me sometimes in radio, television, things happen with guests at the last minute, and you have to be able to go on with the show. And there's been some times where I have been able to been lucky enough to get another guest to come in and fill in. So I'm sort of learning a little bit about this even with this podcast.
And you know what? The great thing too with that is that it's a skill that will never serve you wrong, right? Like knowing how to pivot. And I hate the word pivot because we've heard that so much with the pandemic, but knowing how to basically grab another guest if you need to, and having those on the back burner, or being able to fill time on your own, and being able to connect with an audience or story tell or do whatever it is. It's such an important aspect of being a communicator. So it's good, like as bad as it is that you have to fill time sometimes on your own,
Yep.
it's a great thing
Yep.
because it serves you later on in
Yep.
in other things. And knowing how to have a conversation without having another person
Yep.
is also a great thing. And radio, that's really what it is, right? So
Yes.
that's
Because
awesome.
yeah, because I had the voice of the Patriots come on, and he kept apologizing to me, and he came on 26 minutes late, and I said, "Don't worry about it, Bob." He had technical difficulties, so I kept talking, going, and then he finally came on, and he was like, "I'm so sorry," and I'm like, "Bob, it's okay. Things do happen." So I just kept it going until he could get on, and that's what I'm kind of learning as well.
Yeah, and you know, it's about the tap dance. I always say that it's the art of the tap dance. We like when we did daytime and Susan Cookshire was the host, and it was live, we had guests that sometimes forgot what time they were supposed to be there, or something happened and they can't get a hold of you necessarily in the show. I tried to always have my computer with me, but you know, you don't always look at it in the when you're producing or directing, you're not always connected to a device or whatever. And we had tap dancing that we were always like, Susan was the greatest tap dancer when it came to filling time, because she was she was great at connecting with the audience, but also because we were a live show and there were other guests there, we were able to kind of just, you know, stretch if we needed to. And there were certain guests that you knew if they were on that day and there was something that went awry, you knew you could stretch those guests, or you could have them come in and pitch it in the last minute. And that's the key to being a good producer, is knowing that you have your A plan And then you have a B and a C plan, but have a D plan too, because you're gonna need it. There's gonna be a day where that D
Yep.
plan comes out and you're gonna
Yep.
use it. But it's to have it as a backup, right? So that's key. But it's good that
Abs-
you're experiencing that now, which is
Absolutely. I've
yeah.
actually had a couple of guests too where unfortunately they couldn't come on because there was audio issues. So I just had to reschedule with them. And then
Mhm.
I just did a show on my own and kept going on and on. And being almost 50, I've had a lot of life experiences and stories from the old days. And I kind of like to bring that up here too. So
Yeah,
you have to roll with the punches and stuff like that.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Are you okay with one more question?
Absolutely. Bring it.
Okay. Okay. Um, any advice, not just for me, but any advice for those looking to pursue a career in radio, TV, broadcasting, and where can my audience again find you on social media?
So on social media, I'm on Twitter at producer gal underscore WR. And I'm also on Instagram, but it's harder to find me because it's my initials and the year I was born. So it's CFP 1975. And that's on Instagram. I'm not so active on Instagram, I will admit. It's there, but I'm not as active. And then of course, if you're looking for me, you can find me at rogerstv.com under the staff directory. I'm there and you can track me down. I think I show up under Waterloo region, but I actually work in all regions of our coverage area. In terms of pursuing a career in broadcasting, my advice has always been and will always be go where your passion is and what your gut tells you. So I really, really honestly believe that the person who knows the best about themselves is themselves. And it's great when you have other people that are like, you're really good at that and whatever. There's no doubt about that it's great to have someone tell you that you're great at something. But really, honestly, if this is what you're going to pursue and that you're good at it, what your skill sets are. So I really think it's about taking what you already know about yourself and developing it to be what you want to be. It's like I teach tons of different students right now at the college, and I'm fortunate to be able to do that. That kind of came just sort of out of the blue, and I love the fact that I'm able to help coach people with their skills and stuff. But you know what you love about media, right? Like you know that you love the idea of talking to different people and doing the storytelling from that end, right? You know that that's what you're interested in. You're interested in the radio end of it as well as television, but podcast and being you're interested in radio in the direction you want to go. So for me, I think it's important to pursue the things that you definitely that's what fills your cup, right? Because at the end of the day, who wants to be in a job that they hate? Like it's about being around the things that fill you up. And sometimes, you don't always know in media because there's so many things in media. Like you could go in a variety of directions. Like in my television performance class, half my students don't even want to be in front of the camera. And I always tell them it's not about being in front of the camera. It's about being a better presenter and someone who can communicate. And yes, the TV camera's here just to film you, but it's about the skill set that you want to put into play. So I always say to them, I'm marking you, but I'm not marking you on whether you're going to be the next Jim Sciutto on CNN. That's not what I'm marking. I'm marking the confidence that you start to develop by the relationship you develop with the camera or with the microphone or whatever. And for me, I think it's so important to find where you are valuable. And so if you want to be in television or you want to be in radio and you see a niche that's right there that you want, work towards it. Ask people for advice for sure, but always ask people that you know are going to be honest, but not hurtful because there's too much
Oh
negativity.
yeah.
Right. And I always look for people who are honest that can help me develop where I need to be. The first time someone says to me, well, I really like you, Carla, but I don't think you'd be good at that. That's done because you're not helping me. I'm not asking for your subjective opinion. I'm asking for how do I get to the next step, right? So for me, with my students, I always say to them, what is it that you want to do? Like, do you want to be in front of the camera? Because if you don't want to be in front of the camera, I'm not going to teach you to be a brilliant person in front of the camera necessarily. I'm going to teach you the skills that will help you be a better communicator and presenter to the people that you're going to have in front of the camera. Because if you're a producer behind the scenes, you have to know what looks good in front of the camera. So you have to know how to develop your talent. So what I always say is, think about what it is you want and then talk to the people who can help you get there, and the ones that are willing to coach you, and the ones that are willing to talk to you and work with you and develop you. Because at the end of the day, I want to see success with the people that are around me, because if they're successful, I'm successful in so many ways, whether it's I'm richer because of their friendship, or it's because of the fact that they have this ability that I'm going to be able to work with at some point. Like, and that's really like the big thing about it, is that you really want people that can help you and mentor you in ways that maybe you never thought were possible. But the other thing too is that this industry is hard. I have scars that go deep down, but at the same time, I have kept pushing and kept knowing that there was somewhere I needed to be, right? Like, that the Rogers TV end of it for me was where I wanted to be. I didn't know necessarily that it was Rogers TV as the company, but I knew the atmosphere, the job that I was going to get to do. That's what I wanted. I knew it was out there. I just didn't know exactly where it was. I bounced around to a bunch of different places, but I never felt that I hit that niche, or I never felt that I hit that particular place where it felt like home. When I walked into Rogers TV, for me, it felt like I had walked into a home that I didn't even know I had, because it was this environment that was welcoming. But the other thing is, I was allowed to make mistakes in ways I have never been allowed to do. But I also was allowed to be really super creative in ways I've never been able to be. And I love storytelling, but not necessarily my storytelling. I love telling stories of the community, but I also love editing. And I didn't think I loved editing until all of a sudden I had to work on it to be better at it. And now I love editing a story, or I love editing a show, because I get to be creative in a way that my hosts don't even sometimes know that I'm going to do. And then they see the final product and they're like, oh my God, I had no idea we could do that. I didn't know you knew how to do that. That's amazing. And then you start to collaborate and all of that. But it's so much about, like, when you're pursuing something in media or in the arts or whatever, you have to push. You have to push. If you want to be somewhere, you got to have your name out there, and you got to have people know, hey, I'm this person and I'm here, right? Like, and you have to want it, because everybody wants it supposedly, but it's the true pushing past and honing your skills in every which way you can, and the opportunities that you get, paid or unpaid, take them, because it really will allow you to get those skills that you need going forward, right? Like, um I really think some of the greatest opportunities I've had in my career weren't paid. And they were just, I was there and I just walked in like a sponge and went, "Oh, I I get to try this, or I get to meet this person, or I get to listen to this story." Like, I always feel like I'm listening in on people's conversations as a producer, because I'm not in front of the camera that much. It's rare when I am, but essentially, like, when I'm sitting listening, I feel like I'm this nosy neighbor that's listening in on somebody's conversation as I'm getting ready to figure out, okay, how can I tell that story? How can I cut that down to make that impactful, or make that a really great show, or whatever it is. But what I love about it is the fact that when you get to collaborate with people and like-minded people, you can make some amazing television that you just, like, you're so proud of and that you're happy to do. And that's at the end game, right? Like, that's the end game to getting there. And when you're there, you have to turn around and look back and see where you came from. Like, just with you talking about the fact that, 2 years ago you didn't know how to do a podcast, and you had really hadn't done a whole lot with the camera and stuff. But look at where you are now. Look at what you've done. And that's 2 years. And that's like that in time, even though it's like 2 years is a long time. Yes, especially when you're in a lockdown. But at the same time, it's like that. And look at how far you've come in such a short amount of time. Like, even though it's long and short, if that makes any sense. But you know what I mean? Like, it's those things that, like, I've been at this now 27 years. And how? Like, when did that happen? Because I still think we're in 1996. And it's 2022. And I have a 16-year-old kid and a 13-year-old kid. Where did that happen? Like, but at the same time, um media can be really great, and it has its pitfalls, because we get attacked, because we're the evil to everything, which really are we? But anyway, that's a whole different conversation.
Yes.
but the point to it is think about all the great things that you can do in media, the stories you can tell about your community, the hockey games you get to witness and be a part of, and the great moments, especially like when, Guelph Storm won the Memorial Cup and those kind of things that you're there to see and to witness, and the people that you get to meet that are also ones that have been to the Olympics or have been, to these wonderful moments in the world that you may not have got to experience, but other than to watch on television, but that box brought
Mhm.
that into your house, or that radio station you were listening to, something monumental happened and you tuned in, and all of a sudden the song that you remember had something to do with a memory or whatever. But that's magic, right? And that's what I always say is, if you can find that magic, and media is that magic, go for it, because like you never know unless you try. And sometimes it's about just pushing and pushing and pushing until you get to where you want to be and to be on that other side. Like it's just like, I think for me, I've been so incredibly blessed for the opportunities I've been given, and I never take those for granted, because of the fact that I've had times where I didn't get the jobs I wanted, or I was laid off, or whatever it is. And every time I've been able to bounce back and do stuff, I don't take it for granted, because the opportunity is extraordinary when you're able to do it. And like from the volunteering standpoint and the internships, those are so valuable, because you learn things that you wouldn't necessarily learn in the job. But the other thing is that the relationships that you build in that, like if you were to walk away from Rogers and you were to go somewhere else, as a paid radio personality, you'll still look at your Rogers TV very fondly, because of the fact that you love that experience. And sometimes that's just what drives you to pursue your career that much more, right? Is those kind of things. And it gives you that ability to want to do more and try more. And I love, like, I love the fact that Rogers has allowed me to be the producer I want to be, but also be as creative as I want to be.
Yep.
And I wouldn't get that anywhere else. So my advice, in a very roundabout, sort of all over the place thing, is keep pursuing what you want to pursue. If you want to be a reporter, find the way to be the reporter. And there's opportunities in ways that we didn't have before. Like when I was going through in college, podcasts weren't a thing, right? Like they didn't even really, I don't think they existed. The other thing is that you had to be with a recognizable brand. Like it had to be CTV, or it had to be Global, or it had to be something, or City, or whoever. It had to be that. You don't have to have that now. You can have your own brand. Like you have your own brand for your podcast. So those are the great things. And you have audiences that you're able to develop, that you may have a bigger audience that tunes in to watch your stuff than what's tuning into traditional television. That's a thing, right? So
Um,
that's the amazing thing. And take the opportunity that you have. And this is an extraordinary platform. And the fact that you're doing what you're doing is extraordinary, because that's going to get you that much further, I believe, in your career and your goals, because you're putting it out there, and you're taking the opportunity to hone your skills, and you're talking to lots of different broadcasters, not just me, but you're talking to like tons of people. Like look at the list. You have quite a list. So look at that. And that's impressive. And I mean, it's great you talk to us at Rogers, but I love the fact that you talk to people from Fox, you talk to people, in the States that are sportscasters and
yep.
all of that kind of stuff. And you talk to our Canadian sportscasters and
Yep.
all of those things. The first interview I ever did was with Rod Black, and he was such a genuinely wonderful person. And he was like, the fact he took time out of his day. I was a college student and he took time. It was like, and I appreciated that to no end. So like, I really honestly believe that broadcasters love to talk to each other, and they love to help promote
Absolutely,
people.
absolutely, and I've been very lucky, and I just tell you, it's hard work, and it's something I really love doing. I have a passion for it, and as soon as I'm done with you tonight, Carla, I'm going to be looking to book more guests into April and get my
Awesome.
podcast shows ready for next week.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's spoken like a true producer. So put that on your credit, your producer, because that's what I do. I think about the next thing. I'm always weeks ahead, right? Like
Yeah,
I know we're only in March. I'm
March.
already
Yeah,
into April and
yeah,
June and all of that. So that's
yeah,
awesome. So yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And I have a guest coming on from the Chicago Bears next week, Tim St. Clair.
Nice.
I don't know how he has even time to come on my podcast because he does PA announcing for 5 teams. and he
Busy
has his own.
guy.
Yeah. So, and I reached out to him. I figure it was a long shot, and it took him 2 months to get back to me. He goes, Chris, I'd love to come on your show if you still want me to come on. And I'm
So
like, yeah.
my question to you, since you were asking me questions, my question to you is, um, how do you like what do you when you're approaching somebody, do you send them an email? Do you find them on social media? And what's your approach? How do you connect
Um,
with them?
email them through their website or social media
Okay.
or through the, let's say, Chicago Bulls,
Mhm.
Detroit Tigers, whatever. And then they see my work on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and all my audio platforms. And they either watch or listen to my previous podcast. They like it, and then they get in touch with me, and we work out a day and time that they can come on. And even if it's at 9 in the morning and I'm coming off a midnight shift, I suck it up and I do it. That's another word I wanted to use with you, is flexibility.
Yes. Yes. Flexibility is the biggest thing you will ever need in broadcasting,
Casting, yeah,
100%. And the
definitely.
other thing about flexibility with that, as a producer, you have to be flexible. As a radio personality, you have to be flexible. As a TV producer, photog, camera person, whatever it is that you want to be, flexibility, right? Like it, and if you ever in management, you have to be flexible. Like broadcasting, you have to be flexible because of preemptions, because of whatever. But at the end of the day, flexibility is the greatest asset you will ever have in your toolkit, is that you know how to be flexible. And the fact that, if you want something, you have to go on the time that someone else will give you sometimes, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
anyways, Carla, I think I kept you longer than I was
Oh, you know
supposed to
what? It
keep
was a
you
great
performance.
conversation. I
So,
enjoyed this very much. I appreciate the
oh,
fact
okay.
that you wanted to talk to me. I mean, I
Yes.
don't know many people that do, so I loved it. It was great. And
Okay.
anytime you want me to come back, just to come back, I'll come back. I would love it.
Yes. Yeah, no, I'd love to have you come back as a guest because I've got some more questions and things I wanted to ask you the next time I have you come on.
Okay, perfect. I mean, I am open to it at any point, because if you ever have somebody cancel and you need somebody at the last minute, I can dial in. I
Okay.
understand that as a producer. But I had a
Definitely.
great time, and I appreciated the fact that you wanted to talk to me about my career and all of that. And I mean, I'm a long-winded person, as you can tell. My
No
dad
worries.
said that about me.
So same here. And I was gonna say, and I tell people, if you want to volunteer, even if you just want to volunteer to help out and not necessarily look for a career out of it, to come to Rogers TV, because I really, out of all the volunteering I've done over the years, it's been a really good experience so far, and I'd like to hopefully be with Rogers for a while yet.
Well, we want to keep you. So, like I've only heard positives. I've never heard a negative, and everybody like loves working with you on the Guelph Storm and all of that. And I mean, my brother has said that, and Neil has said that, and Patty, and so I mean, anytime that you want to do anything with me, which I don't know what pops up anymore for me at this point, given that we're still in the COVID times, but it'd be wonderful to have you come and be a part of my stuff. But we absolutely appreciate everything that you bring to Rogers TV and the skills that you come with, and the fact that you want to promote us as much as you do, and all of that kind of stuff. It's fantastic. And we love the fact that you're a part of our team, because you are a part of our team. And so always keep that in mind, that we're a family, and we love our volunteers. Like, we couldn't do what we do without them. Our hosts are our volunteers, our crew are volunteers, and then there's a couple of us that aren't. But essentially, we love the fact that you guys will give up your time to come and do things with us. And sometimes we're not necessarily organized, so the fact that you can come and help us and make us look fantastic is amazing. And we
Perfect.
appreciate volunteers beyond. Like, we couldn't do what we do without you. So
All
i
right.
i love the fact I was able to join your show.
Okay. Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Carla,
You're
and
welcome.
definitely we'll get back to you about having you come on again, because
Absolutely.
I have some more questions and some things I want to talk to you about
Okay.
TV and radio and stuff like that as well.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, Carla, have a great night, and we'll be in touch with you soon. I
Okay,
will download this audio later tonight, and I'll share it on my Twitter page as well.
perfect. All right.
All
Thanks so
right.
much.
Thanks, Carla.
Bye.
Bye. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed season 3, episode 18, with my guest tonight, Carla Fitzsimmons from Rogers TV. You guys can check out rogerstv.com if you're interested in volunteering with them. And also, guys, you can check out Carla on Twitter at producergal_WR as well. And also, guys, before we go, my next Live with CDP podcast to be announced. I will do that on the weekend. And before we go, I'm just going to show a little video clip of the game that I worked with Rogers TV last night between the London Knights and Guelph Storm. This video clip is courtesy of Rogers TV.
In this league, what a season he is having as he tries to force it up into the slot, trying to find Strongis. He couldn't, and they'll turn it over, and Guelph will head the other way. Here comes Pastajob. Nice seam pass. Looking for Zilkin. Net's open. He scores! Danny Dangles finishes it off in front, and the Storm have a 1-0 lead. Pump back down low. Guelph, rather, will get a clean line change as Steklov skates away from the pressure of Pastajob. Hitting the home run feed, and here's London with a breakaway and a fine glove save by Oster. He robbed Faber. These two teams not fans of each other. It's another breakaway and a big blocker saved by Oster up into the netting. He just robbed McSorley. Nice floating pass from the London goaltender. Evangelista. McGurn scores! McGurn cuts the lead to 2-1 on the man advantage. The Knights are on the board. Profaka through the middle, a little too hard for Pastajob to handle, and Evangelista's got a step with Strongis, scores! And the game is tied. Strongis upstairs on a 2-on-0, and the Knights strike twice. Walker trying to walk it back to the point. Sandu, here's Allen, big shot, scores! Cam-tastic is back at it again. It's 4-3 now for the Knights. Cam Allen wires one. Ref felt he went down a little too easy there as London on the defensive zone draw. Rebound for it. Scores! It's Braden Bowman, and the game is tied. Gets some help from Zilkin, who will skate away into the feet of Pappas, who handles that nicely. Pappas losing it in his feet, right in front, scores! It is Sasha Pastajob to the rescue, and the Storm lead again. It's 5-4 Guelph. They'll line up for the draw. Linesmen want to make sure it's just right. Cooper Walker couldn't win it. Evangelista. Oh, they score! The Knights will not go quietly into the night, and it's Morgan who ties it at 5. Pastajob, Allen, Zilkin. Here is Zilkin with Pastajob going to the net. Zilkin buzzes one high and wide. And will that chase London the other way? No, it's out of play. Profaka couldn't get it, and now a breakaway the other way. Evangelista McFarland rushing back. Evangelista, he hit the post.
And he is down. A big hit.
Antonio Strongis will kick us off in the shootout with the Boo Birds raining down, dancing on his edges. Strongis tried to go between the legs, but he pumped it over the net of Jacob Oster. To start it for the Storm, Bushinger down the middle, and he's bested by the blocker of Owen Flores as he will go way wide, sneaking in. Evangelista, nice move to beat Oster on the 5-hole. Here comes Bowman. Bowman right in, and he scores. He beats Flores high glove. We're tied up in the shootout. He'll try and win it for the Storm. Shugan coming down Main Street. Shugan right in, scores! The silkiest of mitts on the young Russian, and he wins it in a shootout for the Guelph Storm. What a hockey game, Mark Perry!
My God.
Anyways, guys, that clip was courtesy of Rogers TV, and that was a great game last night. Guelph is now 6-2-1 against the Knights this year in 9 games. They got 2 more regular season games against London. I believe March 27th at the Sleeman Center on a Sunday night at 7 o'clock, and then Sunday, April 10th at 2 o'clock at Budweiser Gardens. And speaking of the Storm are back in action tomorrow night at 7:30 against the Sarnia Sting on Rogers TV, and I'll be working the game as well. So I guess, anyways, I want to say thank you to my guest, Carla Fitzsimmons from Rogers TV, producer, for coming on. And I want to say thank you to everybody watching on my YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you haven't, on Facebook, Twitter. And also, guys, before I go, I'm just going to let you guys know my next Live with CDP podcast to be announced on the weekend. And also, guys, just to let you know, I'm just going to put this on right here now. Live with CDP podcast, the audio version is downloaded to Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, and LinkedIn as well. And you guys can also follow me on TikTok. And also, guys, just to let you know again, my next Live with CDP podcast, I'll make an announcement this weekend. I've got some more podcasts lined up for next weekend. But again, want to say thank you to Angela Foster for coming on today, and Carla Fitzsimmons. And thank you again, everybody, for watching Live with CDP season 3, episodes 17 and 18 today. And I hope everybody has a great night, and hope you guys can check out the Storm Sting game tomorrow night on Rogers TV at 7:30 as well, and I'll be behind the camera again as well. So looking forward to that, and just want to say again, thanks to my guests, and we'll see you guys next week for more of Live with CDP podcast, audio and live as well. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Again, happy St. Patrick's Day, and we'll see you guys next week for more Live with CDP episodes. Have a great night, great weekend, everybody, and go Storm, go.